Everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Grid Slot Gavra Racing podcast. You're joined by Tucson 028, myself.
Me, Tiger Assassin.
And me, ex-Natty G.
Anyway, we're going to kick things straight off this week with some Project Cars 2 stuff. We had 4 races in Project Cars 2 this week, so it just shows the amount of activity we have going on, even in the off-season for Formula 1. But we're going to kick things straight off using a thing I just said, with the Academy, which is at round 9 in Sakito, which is, I think it's meant to be Suzuka, but they call it Sakito in the game. Anyway, so in qualifying, Die Crocs 04 took pole, with Bruno Clef in second, just 0.4 of a second separating them, with and goalie rounded out the top 3, just over a second off the pace. But anyway, from in the race, the race was raining, so it was quite wet, obviously, and very slippery, very tricky to get around the track. Emo had an off-track experience in the purple Ferrari. Tiger, you've had a lot of experience driving in the wet, especially in Brazil, although I don't think we really talk about that on the podcast. But,
I mean, I'll use it as like a... Go on.
yeah, so how hard is it to spot your braking points in the wet?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say I would have used that as an example. It is difficult in the wet. I mean, it's not necessarily because usually in the dry, obviously the braking points are a lot sooner than you know, and if you've got ABS off, then it can be even more of an issue because if you miss your braking zone, you've got to brake harder than normal, and then it couldn't cause a lockup, and obviously that happened to me in Brazil. But yeah, it is. You got to braking zones. Obviously, they vary depending on the conditions, depending on how your tires are, how your wing is, and also as you're saying, depending on the weather mainly. But yeah, the weather can have a big impact on your braking zones. But you just got to make sure you're braking a lot earlier in the wet, and make sure you're looking at the brake markers wherever they are on the side of the track.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously in the wet conditions, the braking zone will be larger, so you will need to brake earlier to facilitate for that. Moving on into the race, goalie made a mistake. He just took a little bit too much curb, which just shows, the tiny uh, margin for error there is in the wet, especially on a game like Project Cars 2. Just got a little bit too much curb there and went off the track, and that allowed Deck Paint to swoop up into second place. Bruno and Dai then had a really, really great tussle. It was awesome to see that the two leaders of the race battling so hard for so many laps until I believe one of them made a mistake near the end of the race. But yeah, going side by side through the S's, a lot of the first sector, just nothing to choose between most of them. But behind them though, Deck Paint and goalie did go side by side through the S's, and Deck Paint didn't realize that goalie was enough alongside his Ferrari and was spun out by Deck Paint. Natty, how did you see that instant, and do you think that he should have given back the position like he did?
Well, obviously, good sportsmanship for giving the position back, because and from for the spectator point of view, it does look like he closed the door on him when he was trying to go down the inside. But yeah, it was it's good to see that he let him go back, and obviously it's the academy, so it's good, good potential, good reputation on those guys for giving the position back.
Yeah, definitely, it's really good to see that level of sportsmanship in the academy. Bruno and Dai then continued their battle on with a few off-track bits, but they did actually come together at, I'm going to call it the second Degner because I think that's what it is on the real live Suzuka track. But going to defend, Dai took an unconventional line and ended up off the track, which allowed Bruno to come back through on the inside. But then, because of the speed difference between the two cars, I think Bruno went into the back of Dai. Luckily, there was no thermal damage or anything like that. But later on in the race, Bruno was able to get past and up into the lead, where he was able to pull away from Dai and bring home the win in the Academy series. Those two absolutely outstanding race this week. If you haven't seen that race, I would advise you to go and watch it. It was an absolute banger. But we're going to go across the world even to Silverstone, where we had the Ferrari 333 SP, or Ferrari Tongue Twister Championship, if you've been watching the podcast for a while, as Champs took pole position by 0.2 of a second from ESR Chef and Faster A14, with all of the top 5 within the same second, again showing the tiny margins between drivers in Gavra Racing. Moving on to the race, however, we had a massive first corner collision, unfortunately, which saw ID4, Snaker, Hiker, and Flip Flip, who were all involved with, I believe it was ID4 who caught air actually, coming through turn 2 and up to Vale. How did you see that first lap incident, Natty?
So yeah, the two drivers who went wide, obviously they're like off the track, and then I noticed, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was the driving the yellow Ferrari, kind of went to go back onto the track more aggressively, and the other driver was on his right hand side, and obviously there was contact between those two, and obviously that Ferrari's gone off into back onto the track, and obviously because it's that one turn one, all the drivers are really close together, so he's come back onto the track, and he's collected a few people. So it's really unfortunate to get collected in that type of accident. But I think when drivers go wide, they need to be they need to rethink and be careful where they are rejoining.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always high risk, high reward in on turn 1, lap 1. And I think some people went in there thinking about lap 47, and some people went in there thinking about lap number 1. So yeah, when you have that come together, it doesn't always come off that well. And moving on, Faster spun out in Luffield, and he had heavy damage. Just got on that curve on the exit of Luffield, which is treacherous on Project Cars 2. And yeah, he just had to come to the pits to fix his damage. We seem to have a lot of cars being quite badly affected by the dirty air during the race. It seemed like a lot of drivers were able to get to within about an 8/10 gap, and then they weren't really able to do much more from that point. Maybe that's just a setups they're running or something like that. But most drivers were able to make the half race distance on fuel. I think Heike tried to stretch his stint out a bit more to have a lighter fuel in the second part of the race. Alachance, however, did manage to bring home the win from the pole, dominated a lot of the race. I believe he only didn't lead one lap during the pit stop phases, so yeah, dominant display there from Alachance, and he even treated us to some donuts on the cool down lap, which is something that Codemasters better add on their F1 2020 because that was very sick. Nice to see. Thank you, Alachance, for that. As we're going to go across the English Channel now to Le Mans. My geography knowledge is paying off.
Oh, yeah, you're doing well here with the geography.
Yeah, I know, right? As Lonnie and Marco made it another front row lockout for HLB Racing. They hopefully be able to, convert it this time into a 1-2 finish in the race. Lonnie edged it by 0.178 seconds to Mike, and Mike HLB rounded out the top 3, but was 2 seconds off Lonnie's pace. And then at the race start, we had quite the kerfuffle, I think we'll call it, into the first chicane up at Dunlop. It looked like Mike made a huge mistake, like losing control of the car and collecting another driver. But how did you see it, Tiger?
Yeah, it just looked like he locked up, and the lockup just made his car turn in on the right hand side, and at that point you can really do nothing about it. You can kind of see like why he has like locked up. He's trying to go for a move. He's in the moment. He's focusing on that overtake, and he's just locked the car up, and he's lost it, and it's gone. Unfortunately, it's gone across the track into a few other cars, and yeah, it's not great, but it's a racing incident, and he's locked up, and that's there's nothing really you can do about it, to be honest.
Yeah, it looked like he just swerved to the right there to try and avoid Marco on the inside, and he just collected Dalavan, and Dalavan caught like massive air, something up like a Fast and Furious film. But yeah, it was unfortunate for Dalavan, who I believe is in the championship hunt. So unfortunately for him, well, he was our GT3 champion actually in Project Cars 2. So there you go. As we had a nice battle between Boston and Besser at Indianapolis, but that actually led to a quite confusing sequence of events. As well, that was really nice to see. What wouldn't have been nice to see from his perspective, with David spinning off at the entrance to the Porsche curbs. I think Natty, you got a good perspective of it from the stream. How much do you think that will have an effect on this championship, and what do you think the mistake was?
So I think he's turned in a little bit too late for the corner, and then he's got onto the AstroTurb and the curb on the left hand side, and then he started to decelerate, and as he's done so, obviously there's less grip on the curb than there is on the track. So I think his rear's just stepped out on the curb, and that's what sent him spinning off into the barrier. But yeah, that might have a hindrance in his confidence for his championship. Like after one mistake, he might take the next few races a bit more cautiously. But then on the other hand, that might be that he might see that as a way to improve and hopefully maybe push for the championship.
I definitely think there's definitely two ways that he can really take this. He can take it in his stride or it affects it. And I'm sure he'll bounce back and do the latter, and he'll come back and try and win the next one best he can. But leading on from that, his teammate at H3H Racing, Boston, also had a massive spin into the Porsche curves, dropped him down to about 11th place. It looked like they were maybe struggling with their lower downforce setups on the higher fuel loads at the start. Obviously, Le Mans is a low downforce package track. The teams will often bring low downforce cars specifically designed for Le Mans. So I think with the added fuel weight of the car, I think the weight transfer on those LMP3 cars just caught them out a little bit, and they weren't expecting it, causing them both to spin off there. But just shows how important getting that setup right on the car is really important to success in a race. But anyway, someone who had a much more eventful race, going to GJDM, who had a spin at the first chicane, probably struggling with the higher fuel loads again. But what happened at the penultimate chicane between him and his teammate probably would not be that good for their teammate relationship going forward. What happened was, I think GJ missed his breaking point and just completely and utterly just walloped the back of Duke Martin, I believe it was, causing Duke Martin to go off into the barrier and GJ to cut across the final chicane. And there wasn't really either driver massively at fault. I think GJ just missed his braking point a little bit. But then later on in the race, GJ came into shot and he had three wheels on his car. He came into the pits with three wheels on. I think it was astonishing he was able to get back to the pits, but I think he'd obviously preferred not to have the damage in the first place. But yeah, so Dolly Gear then made a late breaking move on Pete Bibb towards the end of the race. Xnati, this similar thing happened to you in Spa in a battle with Shankster after you went for a late breaking move and then accidentally lost the rear of the car. How difficult is it to catch that oversteer moment after that braking maneuver?
Yeah, there are like when you have experience oversteer on the car, there are like two main ways that you can try and catch it. Is one you try. Well, first way is you just lose the car completely, and then you steer in the direction of the car's going, and then that's a way of losing the rear. Because obviously he was turning into the corner. It was a right-hander, so when by having the oversteer, that stepped his put shoved the rear out to the left. So that is he's going to be start spinning clockwise round, and then while turning into the corner, he's probably unable to catch it, which is why he starts spinning. But then the other way to try that he could have done was to counter steer it and start turning left. But then obviously trying to steer it left into a right-hander with the car on your outside is pretty difficult. So yeah, it's unfortunate for him to lose it there.
Yeah, definitely. It was very unfortunate for that to happen to that driver. But while all that was going on behind them, the two HLB racing team drivers of Lonnie and Marco managed to just disappear into the distance. Did not see them again after the start of the race, but Lonnie was very, very nice to his teammate actually on the line, slowing down and letting Marco go through for the win. Uh, Obviously helping his teammate to win the championship there was securing a 1-2 for HLB Racing in that race. But anyway, you're going straight on to the Renault Megane Trophy, which is in the Algarve, another night race for all you night race fans, I guess, as Javier Rands made it 4 out of 4 poles again. This guy is unstoppable in the Renault Megane Trophy, it seems like. Took pole by 1.1 seconds from Aguileta and GTS R12. GTS there managed to break the Spanish domination in third. As Natty, Javier is becoming a really dominant force in the Rama Project cars too. How difficult do you think it will be for him to keep up this run of form, and do you think anyone can beat him?
Well, this is going to be the third time we're going to say this, but there's two ways this could go. Firstly, I think this could be like his confidence is up there, so he might just he's got 4 poles out of 4, so he's just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But then secondly, he might see he's got 4 poles out of 4. He might not tone it down a little, but he might not push too hard and minimize his mistakes and try and keep it consistent and clean till the end of the season.
Obviously, the third option is he just lets everyone else win a race for a bit and then get them the next one. So if he wants to have a bit of fun, I'm sure he'll be able to do that for us. As at the race start, it was a clean start until we got down to turn one. Anyway, unfortunately, it wasn't caught on camera, but Cypher Knight was able to get up from second to eighth, indicating that something quite massive happened at turn one. But Tiger, as a racing driver in Gavra Racing, how important is that risk-reward balance on that
Comes
one?
down to like decision making in terms of, do you want to really push lap one, or do you want to, leave it and then maybe push later on in the race, try and extend the battle across the whole race, or get the moves done as early as possible into turn one. But I mean, in most case scenarios, making any advantage you can into turn one is key, because then that sets you up for a good position for the rest of the race. As quite a lot of people found out in a GT Sport race, I wasn't happy that Holland beat me by 400, so I've delved it down the inside of him into turn one, which that was a bit of a risky one for me, but in the end it came off as a reward. So it just shows that sometimes going into turn one quite heavily can work, but also sometimes maybe you need to just back off and save it for the rest of the race.
Yeah, so I think if you haven't seen my POV from that race, I'll see if you can get it linked down below in the description. But if you haven't seen my POV from the GT Sport, you're just going to see Tiger going full send into turn one.
It
Just
was
like
clean
no
though.
remorse. It was clean, but there was just no remorse in that. But we're not here to talk about GT Sport at the moment, still on Project Cars 2. So we had quite a calm race aside from a three-wide moment between Aguilera, Randalux, and Duke Martin in the Renault Megane Trophy, all of that on the main straight. That main straight providing a lot of the overtaking opportunities during the race. Aguilera managed to get past Duke Martin along the straight, but Duke Martin managed to get back past him and down into turn one, just showing how effective the slipstream is around that track. Randalux had a big spin at the final corner, but managed to avoid the barrier and went back into the pits to repair their damage. Aguilera and Duke Martin had a race, a battle that lasted more or less the entire race, with Aguilera pulling off an outstanding move around the outside of the hairpin. And I'm going to come to you first, Xnati, but how important is that psychological edge in that kind of battle that's lasted for so long to be able to pull off a move like that around the outside of just, you don't really think about it?
Well, obviously, if you're feeling confident in the car, you feel like you've got the good race pace, and if you feel like you've been following a driver for a few laps and you've eyed out their strengths and weaknesses, it's quite what's the word? You get a good feeling when you know or you feel like you've got that advantage, or that even if it's just the psychological advantage, then it can be quite important, because that can give you the motivation and the oomph to try and push forward and get those positions.
Yeah, definitely. As going to you next, Tiger.
Yeah, I just said mainly the same as what Natty said. Really, it's mainly down to like confidence and how you feel on the about the track, and how you feel about the car as a whole, and the car on the tracks. So yeah, it comes down to confidence really. Like, you've got to have, if you're one of those people that doesn't have much confidence in maybe your clean racing, or maybe you're overtaking, you might hang back, wait for maybe try and force them into a bit of a mistake to get an overtake done. But some people just like to go in and get overtakes and maybe go for ambitious moves, like you said, right around the outside, as he did. But yeah, it's just all about confidence in yourself and in the car as well.
And that battle for seventh between those two drivers turned into a battle for sixth in the last 4 minutes, with both of them catching Toby One Kenobi, fellow commentator and guy with an excellent name, which we say on every single
Brilliant name.
podcast. Anyway, he was overtaken by Duke Martin, and he managed to put a move with him with 4 minutes to go. The believe Aguilera was then able to follow Duke through a couple of laps later after Toby made a little mistake in the penultimate corner. But anyway, Javier made it 4 from 4 with another dominant victory in the Renault Megane series, with lead of 41.2 seconds to the car in second place. It's getting a bit Braun 2009, I think, in the first part of the Renault Megane trophy. So one of you lot needs to sort this guy out because he's too quick. Um, Anyway, that brings to a close the Project Cars 2 part of the podcast. I'm going to pass on now to Natty G is going to take you through the Gran Turismo Sport action this week.
So now on to the GT Sports section, where last week was round 7 at the Lago Maggiore circuit, a 5.8 kilometre track with 17 corners, 8 to the left and 9 to the right. But firstly, we're going to start off in qualifying, and we had a new driver actually who took pole position, and it was actually Holland Campion who was replacing Clay Dutchy in that race. He was able to get his first pole position in his first race, so it's a good quali from him. But someone else with a good qualifying was Tiger, qualifying only 0.047 seconds behind him in second. And do you think that qualifying session gave you the confidence to push in the race?
I definitely it did. About half an hour to an hour before the race, I knew that I seemed to have had a lot more pace on that track compared to a lot of the other drivers who are at the top of the championship. So I had a bit of confidence then. But once I got into quali and I put in my lap time, I thought this is gonna be my day here. And I was so happy when I got pole, and then Holland came in with a very good time and beat me by such a tiny margin. But yeah, 100%. It just gave me more. It gave me more confidence. It also gave me a lot more of a determination to get around Holland and get back up into first position. And you saw that in the first corner.
Yeah, and there were also a few additional drivers who were possibly trying to push the car maybe a little too much, as some of them had a few spins in the 12-minute quali session. I think Oriel was one of them, and Phoenix Gamer was another. I think Simmerberg also crashed in the final third sector. It's quite a tricky third sector, actually, especially if you're trying to push the car. It's easy to go wide in a few of the corners and obviously into the gravel or the barrier. But on to the start of the race. If you haven't watched it, then I'd 100% recommend it. It was an action-packed first 10 minutes. And, I could say an action-packed 60 minutes, but the first 10 minutes was just the moment of the whole race. But turn one proved to be one of the best overtaking opportunities, as Tiger, as you heard, took full advantage of it, and him and his Aston Martin went for the full dive into turn one of Holland Campion. Was then able to get the move there, but a tiny bit of contact, which actually gave Holland a little bit of rear damage, and that allowed Toussaint to actually have a go around the outside, but Tiger was able to defend his position. But a few corners later, he went for the move on Holland Campion, which promoted him into the race lead. And like I mentioned at the start, there was action everywhere. Before we continue, I'm just going to ask the two drivers who are coincidentally here with me today. I'll start with you two, Saint. How was the start of the race from your perspective?
Yeah, it's almost like we planned the two drivers being here, isn't it, guys? Yeah, from my perspective, I saw that Tiger had a bit of an instant. He just went full send on full Carlos Sainz send on poor Holland Campion there into turn one. I was able to get a little bit of a run around turn two, but then I just got a bit checked up, and I had to follow him through the second part of the track through the S's, which was quite terrifying. And then I believe he went for a move on Holland Campion around the inside of one of the S's. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh wow, because that completely checked up Campion, and I then had a horrible run down to the massively banked corner on that insanely steep hill at Lago Maggiore. And yeah, that meant that because of that terrible run I had down the straight and the front damage that I had to, get overtaken by about 4 cars.
So Tiger, how was the start of the race from your perspective?
It could have gone a little bit cleaner. As you said, I had a bit of a collision with Holland. It was a bit of a racing incident. I was as I took him down the inside, he managed to get back up in front of me, so I was going to go for a cutback as I had a bit of a better line to do so. And I thought he was going to go wide on the exit, but he actually took the corner quite tightly, defended quite well, and I hit the back of him. But it was a bit of my fault there, but with me overtaking him in the S's, obviously I had a bit of a battle with Toussaint going wheel to wheel through quite a lot of the corners. But I noticed Holland Campion had a bit of a bad exit on the last S. I believe he lost the rear a little bit. I had a little bit of a wiggle of the car, and it just allowed me to get a better exit and more speed to get around him and get the pass done. And then from there on, it was just it was just clean sailing. But no, it was a really good first lap to have a battle with them two, and especially the man himself, Toussaint, who usually shows a lot of speed. So it was always nice to be up there battling with him and Holland.
And like you say, the damage cost you a lot of time. Actually, you went from about third to seventh or eighth in about the first 3 or 5 minutes. So it was
Yeah, don't
unfortunate
remind me.
for you. But we also saw a similar Holland champion who picked up rear damage at the start. That cost him a lot of positions, and he started first. And at one point, he was in last, but around the pit stop time, so he was able to come back through the field, and I think he finished seventh. I think so. It's a good comeback drive from him, and also yourself too, Saint, coming from eighth and then finishing back up in, I believe it was third.
Yeah,
So,
third at the end, just couldn't catch Oriole.
yeah, and it's a good comeback drive from yourself, but someone who had a good start, a Phoenix Gamer. We don't normally see him around at the front of the grid, but it was a good performance from him at the start. He was running in second place for the majority of the first half of the race. However, he did go wide at turn 8 and actually done really well to control the car and not go off into the barriers. However, he did lose the position to Oriole. And another driver going wide at the same corner was your old championship leader, Duke, uh, who, unlike Phoenix, was unable to keep the car out of the barrier and cost him a lot of damage to his front bumper and his engine. That cost him a lot of positions. And so, yeah, we had a few drivers actually getting caught out by the tricky corners. Another tricky corner being turn 5. It's kind of a weird right-hander. It's taken at some high speed, but then kind of medium speed corner as well. And I think GJ was the first to crash his Subaru into the barrier after losing control of the rear on the curb on the exit of the corner. That had a quite big impact on him, actually. He had getting lots of damage to his car. I think he had engine damage and front damage, so he had to cruise his car back to the pits as Jojo Power, another driver to have a crash, more of a kind of a brutal crash actually into turn 5, losing car on the entry this time by getting onto the grass under braking, causing the left-hand side of the on the left-hand side of the track, and then went straight off into the barrier. And though throughout the race there were many overtakes, too many to comment on, but my personal favourite was Oriole's overtake round the outside of Duke at turn 10, the embanked quick right-hander, and was able to finish the move down the inside of turn 11. But if you want to watch the full race, it is on the YouTube channel, which you should definitely watch. And if you haven't already, like I said, I recommend it 100%. But I'm sure there's one person in particular who's quite happy with the result. Tiger getting his first win in the GT Sport League and his first win in Gavra. How does it feel to become a race winner?
Just great. I was, big celebrations at the end when I came across that. I didn't really expect it. Like I knew I had, good pace, but like in terms of just all the races, but I didn't know I was quick enough to win a race, and it happened, and I was shocked and I was shocked and happy at the same time. But yeah, it was it was, in the end it was quite comfortable, but had a bit of it was challenging at the start, and I've come a long way since the first race in the Nürburgring, and I feel like I've just gotten better and better over the season.
It was a really good race from yourself. I think you won by about 20 seconds, so rather play Dutchy dominant race. But seeing as you're here too, Saint, do you think you could sum up your race after being an 8th at one?
Oh wow, I'm definitely the secondary point on this interview, aren't I? So, I fell down to about 7th or 8th position after the start of the race with my damage. I decided to come in early on like lap 10. I could have gone for 8 more laps as well with my fuel. I'd done really well to save the fuel, but I couldn't exploit it because of the car damage. So I had to come into the pits, and it was just charged from there on in. Got a bit lucky with the people having incidents, but I was like, just keep it consistent out of the barrier, and we'll come back for a good result. I managed to get back up to 3rd. Just couldn't get Oriole in 2nd, but yeah, I was quite happy with my performance after the race. I think I'm getting a bit tired of these comeback drives now, but it is what it is sometimes. And yeah, I think I maximized the best from my performance there in Nagamajura.
So, in terms of the championship, Saint, you extend your lead at the top of the table, but only by 4 points. So, as you can imagine, it's very close, and only 20 points behind are Tiger in 3rd and Jojo Powers in 4th, both equal on points. But because Tiger got that win, he claims 3rd place, and behind them, Play Dutchy and GJ are also drawing on points in 5th and 6th. But similarly with Tiger and Jojo, Play Dutchy has more wins, so he takes a 5th place. And do you think you're going to be able to keep your position at the top of the table and maybe even look to extend the gap?
Yes, is the answer to that question. Well, hopefully, because I mean, Duke's put the mead on the table now, so that's that to think about as well. I will have his mead, but that sounds like something else, but it doesn't. It's not that kind of podcast. But
And
yeah, hopefully I'll be able to extend that championship lead. With some more practice, should be able to improve a bit. But yeah, uh, yes.
and Tiger, do you think you've got it what it takes to close the gap to Duke and Toussaint?
Hopefully, but them two very fast, and they've proven that over the entire season. I only have proved it in one race, so it'll be difficult. It's going to be a challenge. I'm optimistic, but two very quick drivers in front of me, so yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a challenge.
And now I'm going to hand over to the one and only Tiger Assassin for the F1 section.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Natty G and Toussaint for your sections. And now it's my turn for the F1 section. And let's talk about the Weekend League. We're going to start off with the two race winners in the Weekend League. And I have to say that both F1 leagues, just quickly, were both very, very good and had a very, very good week from both of them. But in both the two races in the Weekend League, Jutsi actually won the first race and Jetsi won the second. So make sure you don't get those mixed up. Jutsi and Jetsi both won both of the races. That got a bit of a mix-up in the championship there. But Dan Schneider got second in both races and now and then overtook Natty, and you're not very happy about this, Natty, by 3 points in the championship. But then you had a few problems with traction in downforce in quali. We saw you spin out a few times. Could you explain what happened there?
Yeah, I had my Spanish set up, obviously, but I was just... it's turn 9, commonly. Turn 9 or 3 occasions. It was all at turn 9, so... Yeah, I was just trying to push the car a bit too much, and yeah, that led into a spin. I was going to consider putting on more downforce, but then I didn't want to be so too slow on the main straight and lose too much time there. So I think it was kind of, a little bit of a compromise, but I think I was able to hold it for the majority of the race.
And yeah, that was yeah, we did spin out quite a lot there in turn 9. So but anyway. Moving on, but yes, after that, also in quali, there was a little incident between Jutsi and Hazza, where they almost had a big crash there in the final chicane. And Toussaint, you got a bit of a view on the incident there. Which was it just a racing incident, or was there someone to blame during that?
Yeah, somewhat controversial opinion, well, amongst us three at least, but I'm under the opinion it's actually just a racing incident in qualifying. I think because Hazard was in front and he was on his qualifying lap, made a little bit of a mistake into the final chicane. He only had to cut the second part. Jetsi had made the second part of the chicane and Hazard kind of pushed him onto the curb. But I think it's a racing incident because Hazard was on a lap. Like he's not obliged to get out of the way for another driver. And he's made a mistake, but he's trying to come back on the track, as quickly as he can, and it was just unfortunate that Jetsi was there at that point in time, and one of the cars got damaged. But from my point of view, I think it was a racing incident. I don't think if I had to place the blame somewhere, I'd have to say Hazard for not, braking in time for that corner and making that mistake. But for me, that's a racing incident.
What did you just quickly? What did you think, Natty, about it?
Yeah, I agree with Toussaint on that because obviously the Mercedes was on the lap, so he doesn't have to get out the way. But then he has made that mistake. But obviously he's on a lap, so he's trying to get complete his lap. So as he's rejoined the track, and obviously he's gone wide and had to cut the corner, which means the McLaren behind him was able to take the corner. But then the different paths came together. But like Toussaint said, it's quite controversial, but yeah, I'm saying a racing incident for that one.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to see how the stewards look at it. But in the first race, we saw the first race we actually had rains. The first race in the rain of the season, and we had it in Spain, surprisingly. But no safety cars at all, which was very well done to all the drivers for keeping it very, very clean. And however, we didn't see many overtakes due to the weather, and also the fact that Spain is quite a difficult track to overtake on, with a lot of the dirty air down that main straight and not many overtaking positions. But Natty, we saw you did make quite a few overtakes happen on several occasions. One of those overtakes ended with you and Bakwas Boy on the grass. Would you like to explain what happened there?
So yeah, I think my wet setup was. I reckon I had more downforce on my car than some of the other drivers, which means I was able to brake later and go quicker into some of the corners. But I'd lost a bit of time on the straight. So coming through turn 3 and 4, I had a good run, obviously, with my downforce, and then he went defensive to the inside. I saw the gap on the outside, so I thought I'd brake later, try and go round the outside. And then, as we were straightening up the car, I don't think he saw me on the right hand side, and then the door started to close, and then there's a little bit of contact between my front left and his rear right on the AstroTurf, and then we both went off into the gravel. But yeah, it was unfortunate, but I don't think there was much that could have been done. Maybe because Boy could have given a bit more room, but then yeah, I'd honestly think that was just a normal racing incident. He probably didn't expect me to go around the outside. I don't think many people would expect anyone really to go around the outside of that corner, especially in the wet. So I thought I'd try something, but then yeah, you got to kind of risk it and see where it ends up.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it was unfortunate for you to go out on the grass there. You lost a few positions, but it wasn't a bad race in the end. And then towards the end of the race, there was a three-way battle between Gregster, Absolute 11, and Natty, where Gregster was practically defending for his life there. But unfortunately lost 2 positions to both of them. And then in the second race, there was another manic start with a VSC coming out, quite a bit of debris from a lot of wings, and quite a few overtakes did happen actually. But towards the end of the race, there was a 4-way battle for 5th. And Toussaint, you got a good view of this. A few overtakes from Jutsi and Natty, but how good did you think that clean wheel-to-wheel racing was?
I think clean and exclamation marks there. Thanks, Tiger. It was a good battle. I think Jetsi was able to get the DRS overtake on the car in front of him. I wasn't not too sure what the name was. I think if I did, I'd probably butcher it.
I think it was Gregster, I believe, or someone.
Gregster, yeah. It was an Alfa Romeo, I think it was, but he was able to get the DRS and go down the inside. A solid move from him. And then Natty tried to go around the outside of the Toro Rosso, which was interesting. He tried it on the outside of turn 4, which isn't your most conventional overtaking place. It didn't quite work for him, but then he did get it down the inside or outside of turn 4 when the next time I was able to get past the Toro Rosso. But then what happened at the chicane at turns like 7 and 8 I believe it is, I think the Toro Rosso just hit the back of the racing point, got on the gravel, and then just spun round into the barrier. That was definitely probably a racing incident from my perspective anyway. But I think, the Toro Rosso driver was not that happy with his performance there and chose to leave the lobby.
Yeah, we saw he did actually leave at the end, unfortunately, after hitting the wall. But after all of that, Dan Schneider did take a 3-point lead at the top, as we said, over Natty. So I'm sure Natty, you'll be coming back next week even
Hopefully.
Stronger to try and get ahead of Dan Schneider. But on to the Golden Crown, which was there was action that kicked off early, and I have to say that the Golden Crown this week was a lot better compared to last week, and we'll go on to that a little bit later. But kicked off early with a quali ban for the Academy League and an LLP2 for the Super League, so already a bit of a mix-up in that. And then during the first race, we saw Siscon go out early with a collision with 2 of his Academy teammates, I believe, and and I believe it's Jax as well. Toussaint, you got a view on that? What exactly happened there? Was it a bit of a racing incident, or was there someone to blame there? Was there a bit of a swipe maybe from one of the cars?
Again, if I had to blame one driver, it'd have to be, all of them for trying to go, 3 or 4 wide on the exit of Luffield down towards Cops. But for me, it was another racing incident. I think all 4 of them tried to go for one area of track which wasn't there. The Academy guys were kind of their own worst enemy out there last Wednesday. And yeah, that was the consequence of those actions causing Siscon to retire from the race after they had a LLP 5, I think it was, for a quali ban. But yeah, from my perspective, that's what happened there.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate because Siscon went out straight away in that race, and that was the feature race as well. So he would have had to wait quite a long time for his next race. But during the whole race, there were so many battles. I'm going to say from across the whole of the Golden Crown from of that Tuesday. Sorry, across the feature and the sprint race, there was so many battles. But it was a big improvement from last week, and it was improvement of the drivers on how they race and also their attitude towards the racing as well. So well done to all of them. But towards the end of the race, there was a late safety car which brought out a difference in tyres in the grid, with some drivers sticking with old mediums and some coming in on the fresh softs, which hindered quite a few teams, such as the freshman who started off well, but after the safety car missed out on quite a few points there. But a brilliant drive from It's Jax, actually, who started 20th and finished in 5th. So a brilliant performance from him. In the sprint race, we saw a big crash on turn 1, which collected 4 drivers. Toussaint again. You were actually involved in that one. You were one of the drivers that came off into the gravel and then into the wall. But after that, you did make a big comeback in the end. But what exactly happened there on the start?
Yeah, so probably my finest moment in driving. But what happened was I got a tiny touch from, I think, my rear right tire, which caused me to overspeed a little bit into the car of Piero, who was a bit slow through turn 1. I gave him like the slightest of nudges, but apparently that's enough on the F1 game for both cars to spin round. But at that point, I had no chance to save it, and I just got collected by the freshman cars behind. So yeah, it was unfortunate for all 4 of us, but yeah.
Yeah, I believe there's a Piero and Antelope and Cryptech and you, I believe, were the 4 drivers that came off. I believe there was a fewer drivers that may have got a bit of damage off of it as well. There, so it was a bit of a big collision. But once again, a bad race for both the Academy and freshmen. As Holland Campy and Antelope both retired the car. I believe Cryptech may have also retired the car a little bit later on in the race. But at the end, Natty, you were battling, well, not necessarily battling with Toussaint, but Toussaint, you were quite close to each other, obviously, in the same Premier Series team, but you're having a bit of a battle with Jojo. And it looked like, from the angle that I got, you pushed Jojo wide to allow Toussaint to go through. Now, I've heard that wasn't the case. So you'd like to tell us a little bit about what happened?
So I got a really good run on Jojo through the final few quarters, and then he went defensive to the inside, and then, I saw the gap on the outside, and I was like, I just thought to myself, I've got to go for it. It's the final corner on the final lap. So I pulled over to the right, went for the outside, but then as we're turning into the corner, the left-hander, the door was shut quite quickly. Realised that I couldn't take the corner, otherwise I would have hit Jojo. So then I went to cut the corner. Obviously, I didn't want to hit him, so I went to cut the corner. But then I took too much curb on the corner, and then I kind of lost the rear on the curb, and as I tried to catch the car, that resulted in me just drifting out wide and off the track. And then obviously Jojo, being on the left, had nowhere to go. But then in the end, I did get a 10-second penalty for the illegal overtake. So yeah, I'm not saying I didn't get away with it, but I got punished by the game for it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you probably agree that. I mean, both of you looked at it, but on stream, it did look very much like you pushed him wide. But obviously, he's saying you just lost it there, and it wasn't intentional or anything. But yeah, at the end, Toussaint came around in third. I believe RCA actually got fourth on penalties there, and you dropped all the way down to seventh, I believe, Natty, after you served that 10-second penalty. But not to mention, however, after all of that, Grin, well done to him. We won both races, brought on big points to the Super League, which they now lead 53 points going into the final race in Brazil. So I'm sure you two in the whole Premier Series lot aren't going to be happy with that. I'm going to have to try and get a good performance out in Brazil. But what a drive from Grin. But yeah, that's everything from the F1 this week. Well done to all of the drivers for having a brilliant week this week compared to last week. And yeah, the attitude was perfect, and let it carry on for the rest of the season and into the next. But I'll hand back over to you, Toussaint.
All right, thank you very much, Tiger and X Natty, for your sections. And now we're gonna delve into the part that everyone's been looking forward to. It's driver interviews time. Today we have another British driver, a South Londoner indeed. It is Mr. Cryptech QN.
Hello, lads.
You all right?
No.
Yeah, I'm alright.
All right,
How are you
so
guys?
yeah, we're all good. We've been here for a while. I'm sweating about the timer I have, and I keep looking over at it. But anyway,
Cool.
you're a relatively new addition here at Gavra Racing. How are you finding things so far?
Yeah, I'm finding it really great. It's the best choice I've ever done. I can't even imagine what it'd be like not joining the league. I mean, like everything and every day has been fun ever since. And I've met awesome people in the league, like Holland Campion, and everyone in the league is just like so cool.
Like how it goes just like Holland Camp. He just singles out Holland Campion just because he's his teammate.
He deserves the credit.
Yeah, none of us though, so insta kick. That's what
No, of course you guys as well. I mean, I said
well,
everyone in this league is cool.
he's covering all bases there, but I'm going to hand over to Tiger Assassin.
So for our listeners who don't know who you are, would you like to tell them a little bit about yourself?
All right. I'm Cryptech. I joined in like December 2019, and I've done 2 series since then, the Academy and the Freshman series. I'm a huge Max Verstappen fan, and of course a Red Bull fan, as some of you may know. I first got into racing when I bought Gran Turismo, like learned all about the racing lines, and it's just I just thought it was really cool. And then I got into F1 from watching the Netflix series Drive to Survive. Then I got really serious into it, and then I bought steering wheel, and then yeah,
It was
just
a nice
like it now.
sequence
Just
of
love it.
events there. Yeah, he's just loving life now with his steering wheel.
Yeah.
But X Natty?
So this season you raced in the Freshman League. What was your personal highlight from the
Yes.
season?
It probably has to be the Circle of the Americas qualifying. I got a P3, I think. Some of you were like shocked. You thought it was Holland Campion, but it was me.
Yeah, that was our
Uh,
bad up in the commentary box.
yeah,
All right,
yeah,
so
that was
you
my
were. Oh, sorry. Speaking of Mr. Campion, you were
bad.
teammates this season, and he did win the championship. Has he given you any
Yeah.
tips? And do you have like quite a close relationship with Holland?
Yeah, Holland Camping is like the best teammate ever. I couldn't ask for a better teammate. He's giving me loads and loads of tips. We went into the series. We met in the 5th anniversary race and we had to go in teams. And then we both went into freshman. We weren't even expecting to win both titles and constructors and drivers championship. And then when we won, it was just, oof, it was just,
You're just
I was
gone.
speechless. Yeah. We was not expecting, and Holland 100% deserved the championship.
All right, well, there you go. Glowing report there for Holland Campion. I'm going to give it to Tiger now for the next one.
So, do you think he'll stay as teammates for next season?
I saw this question and I was like, because I don't know if he wants to or not wants to. I mean, together we achieved so much, and if he's willing to do, then I'll be his teammate. Maybe as rivals, if we're in the same
Ooh.
series.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think Natty
But
wants to
yeah, I would
swoop in
most
there and have
likely, I would really like to be his teammate again.
Oh, awesome. I think Natty would like to swoop in there and have a championship winning teammate as well to bring home the constructors, as he said many times. Yeah, speaking of Mr. X Natty G, I'm going to hand the baton to him now.
So you finished ninth in the Freshman League Championship, and obviously
Yes.
you in Holland won the constructors. Are you happy with your result this season?
Yeah, I'm happy. I didn't even expect to be in the top 10. Because I saw the drivers at the start, I was like, oh no, this is not going to go well. But yeah, I had a couple of bad races, like Bahrain in Germany. Bahrain got disqualified for going the wrong way when I wasn't. And in Germany, my mom turned off the TV and um, yeah, it did see the screen went black, and then I went into the wall and I lost a couple of points. And I think if I got those points and those things wouldn't happen, I would have clinched like seventh in the championship.
Yeah, I guess it happens
But
to the best of
overall,
us.
yeah, I think it was a really great season. Yeah, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I think that kind of happens to the best of us, though. Just there's some things that are out of your control. Like, I've had my internet drop out twice on me during a race, and I have an Ethernet cable, so if that happens again, I'm going to be very angry. But anyway, do you have any plans to continue in the Freshman League or move up to the Premier Series or even Super Leagues next season?
Most likely into Premier Series. Yeah,
Okay, nice. See if you can get that
yeah,
title. Hopefully, I'll be commentating on you again. So, always look forward to doing that.
yeah.
As the ex-natty, the final question.
And normally we ask drivers if they're going to adventure off into other games, but we've noticed you've joined the GT Sport League recently. How did you come to that
Yes.
decision?
I just thought it's such a long way till there's going to be another series racing in F1 2020, and I would get really bored from not racing at all. So I thought I'd join the GT3 series or the Gran Turismo GT Sport series. It was just for fun. I try and be competitive.
Yeah, a lot of practice
Yeah,
to put
just
in.
something to do in the meantime.
Yeah, a lot of practice to put in there between this round and the next one. But thank you to Cryptech for coming on the podcast. Always a pleasure to commentate on you, and it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, mate. And wish you
No
all the
problem.
best for the future. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that was Cryptic, everybody. If you would like to be involved in the on the podcast in the same way that he just was, use the Discord, Twitter, or Instagram, all of which will be linked down below. You can send a message to either of those, or if you are on Discord, you can PM any of us. That's Tiger Assassin. My Discord is Unlimited Chicken, or xnattyg1_Palpatine. He insists on being called Palpatine. But anyway, that's going to bring to an end episode 7 of the Grid Slot Gavra Racing podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this greatly as much as we enjoy recording it. Signing off, this has been me, 2.0208.
The Tiger Assassin.
And me, X-Natty G.
And if the other two will stop breaking down in laughter, we'll try and get that one better for you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
See you later.
See ya.